Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 160 of the Stomp the Bus show. I'm your host, Mark Harris, and it's all men's basketball coaching search for this episode. There's a lot to get to. There's been conflicting reports, big names, ASU alumni, a rapper, all sorts, some names that have popped up that you would have never guessed. And it is making for an interesting coaching search, I'll tell you that much. And so I want to dive into some of that and kind of focus on who really the actual best candidates are in this venture. Also touch on ASU women's basketball, ASU baseball, and Clayton Smith coming back to ASU football. I should have mentioned that on the last show. It just kind of fell through the cracks, but that's a really big addition, I guess you could say, for ASU football. So please like and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. Oh, wait, no. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Please rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. And let's get this episode rolling. So, in the wake of ASU parting ways with Bobby Hurley, not going to say firing because he wasn't fired. It was a contract that ran out. Some expected names have popped up for the ASU men's basketball coaching job, and some unexpected names have popped up. And I'm going to try to weave through who's available, who's not available, who would be a good hire, who's not actually a possibility, who was reported as one. And so there's been, like I said earlier, there's been some conflicting reports. And I guess I'll start with an interesting name that got reported by Jeff Goodman on Tuesday. Yeah, today's Tuesday. Was Kansas assistant coach Jeremy Case. This is a guy who's 41, assistant coach at Kansas. Like, you're really in the mix of all the comings and goings of the current era of college football. And so you like that. You like the young vibe that he would bring, and kind of similar to Dillingham, where Dillingham had experience in really high-level programs like Auburn, or at least is like in the waters of like competing for high-level recruits. That's a better way to put it. Oregon, high-level program. He saw how the sausage was made at these places where they're trying to really, really win at a high level. And so I think ASU football has benefited from that, his set of eyes seeing, okay, we need to do this. We need to do this. Here's what NIL we need. Here's what we need for facilities, for all this stuff. This is how we run practice. All these things that if you hired a guy from a lower level may not have brought. So, and Case could potentially bring that stuff too. But it was reported on Tuesday night by Chris Cartman of Sun Devil Source. Where did he report this? Okay. So this is a tweet from him. He first starts with Greg McDermott, not going to happen. I'll just say, thank God. It was a fun little story. It's like, oh, Greg McDermott, like, could he come down here? He's been successful. But then the more you think about it, it's like, dude, this is a retirement job for him. There's no way he's going to treat it with the same level of intensity he did at Creighton. There's so many reports of like, oh, he wants to retire in Scottsdale, and so he could play golf. It's like, no. I don't want you playing golf, okay? I don't want you playing golf. I want you coaching. I want you on the road. I want you turning over every rock to find talent for this program, okay? I don't want you playing golf. Secondly, also, this from Cartman, a report out today that ASU interviewed Kansas assistant head coach Jeremy Case as candidate was not accurate per sources. He also says rumors of Clippers assistant Jay Larranaga being a serious candidate are also incorrect. So all of those names, I hadn't heard anything about Jay Larranaga from the Clippers, but that's just kind of a snapshot on like, okay, like there's a lot of names being thrown out, and I'll get to some of the more wacky ones later on. He also tweeted out, and I think this is a very important thing, and I'll share the screen here. Share screen to the main, and here we go. This is from Chris Cartman. Sources: ASU won't hire a new basketball coach until at least early next week, Molly Miller's NCAA tournament team warrants focused attention. I agree. And some potential candidates whose teams are in the men's NCAA bracket will not speak with another school until they are eliminated. So that's another interesting point as well. Could that mean a Jared Calhoun at Utah State? I've seen that he's linked to Cincinnati. And again, this is not the podcast to come to if you're just a blind ASU homer. Cincinnati's a better job than ASU. It just is. Maybe that's not true forever, but right now in 2026, in March, Cincinnati Bearcats is a better men's college basketball job than Arizona State. There's no one who would disagree with that, who's thinking rationally and critically. So we'll see. Eric Olin and the New Mexico Lobos did not make the tournament. Neither did Jace Coburn and the Portland State Vikings. The Vikings. They did not make the tournament. And so I don't know who. Oh, I guess you have Randy Bennett as well, and St. Mary's is in the tournament. I should have led with that. He also mentioned NCAA tournament bracket too, and not like the CBI or is the I don't know, the NIT with all the big majors and all that. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm kind of fine with them slow rolling it because it's not like there's that much competition. And this is something that I've been tweeting out on the account over the past week. I don't know if I tweeted it out for when Oklahoma brought back Porter Moser, but that was a very good thing for ASU men's basketball. It was, because that's a better job than ASU, and they also have the SEC money. Okay. And so ASU just doesn't have to compete with that, right? They have to compete with Georgia Tech, Boston College, Providence. I think Butler too, because Thad Matta stepped down. Syracuse, I think that's it. Boston College, Georgia Tech, Syracuse, Butler, and Providence. Yeah. And so, okay, maybe ASU is the sixth best of those options. I actually think it's fifth because it's a better job than Boston College, which I've had some people tell me just, in my circle that Hurley was kind of reaching out to Boston College this during the season, which I think is funny. And I don't blame him. And honestly, I think he could do decently well there. I think the Hurley name, the Hurley act, as it were, I think that plays a lot better in Boston, where you can get these old white dudes who went to Boston College and remember his dad as the head coach, right? And then him and his brother playing, and then you could have the regional rivalry with him and his brother. I'm sure there's UConn and Boston College crossover in that area. And so I think that could actually really happen. And I think he could do a better job there, especially because, there's most likely will not be another worldwide pandemic. And secondarily, because he would go into that situation with a clear understanding of what the how do I say it? What the rules are in college basketball now, because he would know what he's getting into in terms of NIL and keeping up and all of that stuff, where it took him a bit at ASU to kind of fully grasp that. And no better evidence of that was when basically everyone off the 2023 team left. And that was maybe the second best team he had at ASU. I mean, after 2020. And so, and that was just kind of a well put together team, had size, had shooting. It was cohesive. And so I could see that working for Hurley at Boston College if it happens. But anyway, Kansas State has been filled, right? They hired Casey Alexander. So that's one more guy who, or that's one more program that's a better job than ASU. And so the fact that they hired Casey Alexander, it's okay, they're off the board, right? Unless a Max Crosby situation happens where they renege it. But I just think that this plays out well for ASU, and maybe they'll get turned down by some guys, right? But there's been some names that have popped up that are very intriguing. And I'm very surprised that Cal basketball head coach Mark Madsen has his name has entered the fray here. I did not think I don't think that ASU and I think that ASU and Cal are very, 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 very similar. So here's the tweet here from Thomas Dunn. Very, very, very similar jobs. Now, Cal has just had a better history, right? Jason Kidd, Tony Gonzalez, funny enough, Jaylen Brown, and I'm sure there are many guys I'm forgetting. So, but both, you're in a huge metropolitan market. You are very far down the food chain of people's interests, right? That's just how it is. Not like a fantastic winning tradition. And in currently, which is the most important thing, is not that much NIL to work with. So you're not going to be able to get the best guys, or if you get guys, they're going to be diamonds in the rough type of thing. So that's why I would be like, well, if you're at Cal, why just stay at Cal? What's the point in even leaving? Apparently, I don't know. I don't want to make it oh, Mark Madsen's coming. But if he can come, he's had success at Cal, he had success at Utah Valley previously. And this is Thomas Dunn's tweet about it from a few days ago. Cal men's basketball head coach Mark Madsen is listed among Arizona State head coach candidates from a piece on The Athletic this past Wednesday. Madsen is said to have, quote, gained a lot of fans in the industry, quote, for his job in getting Cal 21 wins amidst resources. That should have been written better. He should have said for his job in winning 21 games at Cal amid low resources, but whatever, it's Twitter. So there's that. You have Jordan Ham. If I'm ASU, I'm going hard after Madsen. Magnetic personality. A few tidbits. Okay. So you have Golden Bear Zone. Buckle up. Arizona State has Mark Madsen as a top candidate and are gathering resources to offer him their head coaching spot per sources. So there's a lot of, I wouldn't say official reports, but a lot of buzz that Mark Madsen at Cal could be an option. And I would take him. He's a former NBA player. He's been through the coaching search. I'm 95% sure he's LDS, and there's a large LDS population in the Valley. And so I think that could be an attractive thing for him, potentially taking ASU. And it's also one thing that is a huge negative for Cal is having all of that travel. You got to go across the country for almost every road game. And that sucks. Okay. ASU basketball is not in that position. Going to Texas is not going across the country. Going to Utah, anywhere in Utah or Colorado, not going across the country. Kansas or Oklahoma, even Iowa State, that's not yes, you'll have to play at UCF and at Cincinnati and at West Virginia, but maybe just one of those per year, right? And so that's much less of an issue in the Big 12, especially for ASU. So that's not a big deal. And it's the Big 12, it's the best it's the best college basketball conference. And all these guys are competitors. So I could see why he would be interested. There's also smoke about Randy Bennett. If Randy Bennett wants the job, just hire Randy Bennett. I don't care that he's, I think he's 63. That's not an issue to me. Not now. This job is not good enough for ASU to have these lofty expectations and standards. Just get someone who's good, If Randy Bennett's here for 4 years and you go to the tournament 2 out of 4 years, check that. I'm done. That, I would absolutely take that right now, So we've all seen what he's done at not Penn State, St. Mary's, and it's impressive. They have clearly established themselves as a year in, year out tournament team. They have an identity. They've been a thorn in the side of Gonzaga. And I've mentioned on the last episode, like with the WCC is completely changing what it's going to look like with Gonzaga leaving. And like that is something that could be in the back of his mind. And he's also from Arizona. And I know I've heard some talking points out there that like, oh, well, Randy Bennett hasn't lived in Arizona for 43 years. So it's like, well, he still grew up here, right? If you grow up somewhere, that's always going to be a part of you. So that doesn't make any like maybe he wants the job just, but like that's an extra added lure for ASU to come get him. Eric Owen, I spoke about him on the last episode. Nothing has really changed. They didn't make the tournament, bubble team. He just won. I mean, he's really won a lot at UC San Diego, did a pretty good job at New Mexico. I don't think it would be too big of a step up. I would be fine with that hire. I don't think it's like a huge win the press conference thing, but I would be totally okay with Eric Owen as the head coach of ASU. And there's a chance he turns it down being like, hey, maybe I'm a year out from getting a better job. Like that's on the table. And that's on the table with a lot of like the South Florida coach turned down Syracuse. That's what happened. And it's basically for that guy, it's either Providence or staying at South Florida. So like just because it's a better, like it's still ASU basketball. Like I would not blame any of these coaches for being like, man, we are a definite bottom half program in the Big 12 in terms of resources and fan success, expectation, like all of that. Like that is all just true. And so that has to be acknowledged in this coaching search. But why I'm positive about this is because that's not going to affect everyone who says it. Like you'll be able to get someone who's decent, especially with the lack of competition. And one of the reasons the guy, I think his name's Hodge from South Florida, he turned down Syracuse amid them not having as much NIL as people would think. And so maybe Syracuse isn't as good of a job for some of these coaches as we might think. And another thing that's always going to be beneficial in really any ASU coaching search is that like, where is these guys' wife going to want to live? Are they going to want to live in Phoenix or in Syracuse, New York? I honestly like, and this isn't about like criticizing an area of the country. Like there's negatives about Phoenix too. It's freaking 100 degrees and it's March 18th. Okay. Like there's real issues with Phoenix, but come on, like they would rather live in Phoenix. Right. And so I think it'll help like Cincinnati. They like, would you like, so I think these are things that just need to be mentioned as soft factors. Let's see here. I still with Jace Coburn, like from Portland State, I wouldn't hate it. He would take the job. I bet he would take the job and you could get him for cheap. And, you know, I don't know if I mentioned this on the last episode or not, but he had a quote at a press conference about like, oh, like he's a real hardo. Like he would, personally, I would never want to play for a coach like this personally, but I'm not, you know, a basketball player, right? Like I'm just a guy. And he had this quote of like, oh, like I drive around my 2003 Chevy Tahoe and, you know, when the window, like what did he say? Oh, like I don't turn on heat in the winter and I don't turn on the air conditioning in the summer because that's just the grind and all that. Like for me personally, that's just a huge, gigantic roll of the eyes. However, again, he's not coaching me. And you know who else says a lot of corny, weird stuff like that is Boston Celtics head coach Joe Mazzulla. And he's won a championship. There's a decent chance he gets back to the finals this year. You know, like that stuff can win. People compared like that to Dillingham. I don't think Dillingham is even in the same atmosphere of that level of like hardo corniness stuff from a coach, but alas. So I still like Coburn. I'd be happy enough with him. Glasser, the Derek Glasser case is very simple. It's, hey, like he's the former player at ASU. He's got he's one of James Harden's really good friends. He's got the backing from Harden. And like that's like that's the case, and if Harding can, if he just brings in so much more money, I would be totally fine. I mean, like, okay, I could at least see the vision, right? It would not be my first choice. I would so much rather have one of Madsen, Bennett, or Olin ahead of Glasser, but I could see the vision. There's also Jared Calhoun. I think I mentioned him from Utah State. I don't know. I would definitely take him. He's a really good coach. It's not that, but he's like an Ohio guy. I think he coached at Youngstown State. Yeah, this guy's from East Liverpool, Ohio. He went to Cincinnati. He played at Cleveland State. He was a student assistant at Cincinnati for a season. He was a coach at this place called Walsh, which is in North Canton, Ohio. Assistant at West Virginia. Head coach at Fairmont State, which is in West Virginia. And then head coach at Youngstown State for 8 years. And then for the past 2 years, he's been at Utah State. Like, it's pretty, like, he's basically his entire life. He's lived in Ohio and West Virginia. And then for 2 years, he's been in Utah. Okay. Like, that's fine. If the Cincinnati job is open, like, that just seems like such a natural fit. It's honestly not even, for me, it's just not even worth like wringing it out and dissecting it that much, because I just don't really think that, that's like actually a legitimate option for ASU. So those are some of the more kind of normal names. I don't think Josh Schertz from St. Louis doesn't really seem like he's available. So forget about him. And again, like with Georgia Tech open, not that Georgia Tech is so much better of a job than ASU, but it is a better job. And Syracuse equivalent. Butler and Providence, I don't know, Big East a little different, but it's still competition out there for these guys. And you have, again, having mentioned Travis Steele from Miami of Ohio, and then John Gross at Akron. I would be fine with either of those two guys, but those are both like Midwest guys. And I feel like John Gross, you're going to see him at one of those, at like a Butler, or at maybe at a Providence. I don't know. Same with like Travis Steele at Miami of Ohio, like, or they just don't leave at all. That's the other thing. So, like, it would be, I wouldn't be against getting those guys. There's also Mike Boynton, who was mentioned in Matt Norlander's article last week. He was the coach at Oklahoma State for about 7-8 years. Had a few 20-win seasons, only one tournament berth, but he had Cade Cunningham on that team. And so the fact that he has in his resume the ability to add a former number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft to his team, that's very encouraging. So, and as I talk about all of those guys, I would say, like, I think Randy Bennett and Mark Madsen feel like the two most like rock solid options. Eric Olin third, and I'd be happy with Olin. Then there's a bit of a drop off, which would be Jace Coburn, just because he's a bit younger, but not he's 42, so he's not quite as young as people think. And he, again, Portland State, like, he is at a resource disadvantage there compared to his peers, and so that's what you want as an ASU head coach. You don't want to take the big fish in a small pond at another conference, because then they get here and they're like, oh my gosh, we have to compete with Houston, Kansas, Arizona, Iowa State, and some of these other schools that maybe weren't as good, BYU, some of these other schools that maybe weren't as good, but they have way more NIL budget, like a Kansas State, for example. So, maybe like a West Virginia you could throw in. I don't know. But I think you want to get someone who has already been working at a resource disadvantage. So that's where Jace Coburn, a Mark Madsen come into play. Now we kind of get to some more off the beaten path candidates, to put it lightly. I did not expect to see this tweet come across my feed the other day. So this is from Kyle Odegaard, who used to work for the Cardinals, now works for Sporting News, media guy. And this is the tweet from yesterday. Oh my gosh. Got a ton of 1.6 million views is incredible for this. Master P is interested in Arizona State men's basketball coaching gig per sources. He is currently the president of basketball ops for the University of New Orleans. Coach guys like DeMar DeRozan, Lance Stevenson, and Brandon Jennings in AAU ball. So I'll just this would be. I don't even think this would be like hiring Coach Prime. I don't know what the equivalent of this would be, but I'll say this from like an entertainment standpoint, I think I would take it. And someone with connections, because Master P is going to have more connections than like your average, like a Jace Coburn or an Eric Olin or something. Like it's a less traditional path, obviously. I would not be like super upset. Now he would still be at the back half of like I'd rather have him than Greg McDermott, but that's not happening. It looks like anyway. And ultimately, I feel like with a guy like him, like, can you be a head coach at like some other, like, you're not even the head coach at University of New Orleans. You're the president of basketball ops, which is good. Like, obviously that matters. Like, that means you're you're in the mix of like who's good and identifying talent. I get that, but I don't know. Like, it would be interesting. And again, with ASU men's basketball, there's basically nowhere to go but up. But you also you still want to make the right hire. And when Colorado hired Dion, he had 2 years of winning at Jackson State in his back pocket. And he had his son and Travis Hunter to bring with him to Colorado. So there was also that connection as well. So, if Master P can get some really good young players in here, then sure, that would be great. But I just think it's something that has to be acknowledged. Like, there's AAU coaching experience, which isn't nothing, but it's also like, could you be the head coach of New Orleans before you take this job? Could you be the head coach of like an HBCU or just another, like the head coach of like North Florida or Jacksonville or anywhere, like one of these mid to low major schools? Like, then it becomes much more of a actual realistic thing. And I think they should take the time to meet with him. And heck, maybe you can get him as the president of basketball operations at ASU. That would be pretty cool. That would be the ideal would be like you get Mark Madsen as head coach, you get Glasser as the top assistant, and then you get Master P as president of basketball ops for ASU men's basketball. That would be like ideal. So there's that. And then there's one more. This is something that actually makes a lot of sense, but it is not something that I really expected. And I think it's very interesting that Chris Cartman tweeted this out. So this is from Tuesday. Good Lord. I'm getting my dates mixed up. Chris Cartman, Byron Scott, great Sun Devil. I grew up rooting for him in the 80s in the LA area. He spent much of the last decade privately telling people how much he'd like to coach at ASU. Always good for an AD to talk with someone with his profile. Highly unlikely he's offered the job. So ultimately, I would not want Byron Scott as the head coach of ASU men's basketball. But the fact that he has been basically saying behind the scenes, hey, I'd be interested in this job if it comes open. That's a huge feather in his cap, because he's someone who knows what ASU basketball is, the good and the bad. He obviously has a connection to the program, and he's coached in the NBA. It hasn't been the best, but I think people forget that he was a pretty good coach in the NBA in the 2000s. So this is before my time. ASU from 79 to 83, fourth overall pick. Played for the Lakers, Showtime Lakers for 10 years. All that. But he was a head coach. So yeah, he took the Nets to like 2 finals. He was just a head coach in the NBA, continuously a head coach in the NBA for 15 years. 2000s, Nets, Hornets, Cleveland Cavaliers, and then the Lakers. And everyone remembers his time with the Lakers. But that was the end of the Kobe era. Like those Lakers teams, just terrible, 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 terrible rosters. And so head coach of the year in 2008. The Nets, he's coached in the finals twice. Like that matters. And granted, that was 20 years ago. So that has to be acknowledged, and he's 64 years old. And so like there are real reasons to be skeptical of hiring Byron Scott, but I don't think it's a Herm Edwards situation, because if Herm Edwards had been a player at ASU and like had a passion for the program from like literally playing there, I think he would have done a better job and would have kind of known how to navigate things better at ASU. And he just and then also like college basketball is now more like, could Byron Scott get like more NIL? I mean, potentially, who knows? Like he would know people. So I think it's notable that Chris Karpman's tweeting this out. I also think people should check out the Locked On ASU podcast that they had. I almost said Chris Karpman. They had Byron Scott on the show. And so these are interesting things that I don't know. I wouldn't be like that upset about it. Ultimately, I would rather hire one of the top 3 of Randy Bennett, Mark Madsen, or Eric Olin. But these are things to consider, and it's an interesting hat being thrown in the ring. And so, if you guys have access to, I don't have access to Sun Devil Source, the blogs, or not the blogs, but the message boards. But if you do, like Karpman has a huge thread about it. And so, ultimately to end up this basketball talk, like it's cool that there's lots of different names being thrown around, and it seems like you can get someone who is at least pretty good. And that's what we wanted, right? Like the fear was that just like, oh, we're just going to have to pick like some random, like Jace Coburn is by far the best option for this. And I don't think that's the case. I think that he is one of the options for this, but not the best option. So, probably by the next time I record, we'll know. But ideally, if you could get Randy Bennett or Mark Madsen, like, let's go. That would be awesome. Quick touch on ASU baseball. Good weekend and good win over GCU last night. Wasn't the prettiest win, but you got it done anyway. The Friday loss was tough. That was a tough loss to TCU, but you bounce back, take the series, and now you're 15-5. Your only real bad stretch of the season, and it was really bad, was against those SEC teams in Oklahoma and then in Dallas, and then you lose again to TCU. But setting yourself up well, and TCU is one of the better teams in the Big 12. It's one of your competition. And good stuff with ASU baseball. Now, ASU women's basketball. They are back in the tournament. And I'm so glad the stupid metrics, everything didn't get in the way of a 24-10 team making the tournament. So happy for Molly Miller. So happy for the program. First time they've made the tournament since 2019. That feels like forever ago. In fact, that was like 2 years after that was a year after I graduated college. Oh my God. Pre-pandemic, just a different world in many ways. And so that streak has come to an end. You're in the tournament. They're playing a first 4 game against Virginia. They are 2.5-point underdogs. Oh, no, I'm sorry. They're 2.5-point underdogs. And You know what? That's fine. I'm not expecting some sort of fantastic run. If you paid attention to this team this year, like they did a fantastic job of beating up on the teams that they are better than, and then they would lose to the teams. Or I'm sorry, beating up on the teams they were better than, and then losing to the teams that were clearly better than they were. And there were a few exceptions here and there, but that's hey, like ultimately, like that's how you got to win games, especially after the previous tenure and how bad the program was. Like just be decent, and they were able to stack wins. And look, they're in the tournament, and like they can win this game, and then who knows what happens, right? Like Molly Miller is sick, and so that's an issue. She may or may not be able to be with the team in Iowa on Friday night, or no, Thursday night. My gosh, I am getting the dates all mixed up. But anyway, yeah, Thursday night on ESPN2, which is cool. So during the mix of all the games, you can pull up ESPN2 as well, and so I'm excited about that. And like it's just such a great step forward for the program. So even if they lose tomorrow, like it's I'm glad that Molly Miller and this team were rewarded with a trip to the tournament, even if it's the first four. I think it's great. And it would have been awful for them to have this great season and totally turn the program around and then just get left out on Selection Sunday, even though they had 24 wins. And so it's kind of annoying that they like had to win one of those games again. I think that, what would it be? The game against Iowa State in the Big 12 tournament. They pretty much had to win that game to get into the tournament, but they did. And to top it all off, they swept University of Arizona as well. So that was a fun side story to the season. One more thing, I just want to close out the episode with this. Clayton Smith coming back to ASU football is a great piece of news, an absolutely awesome piece of news. Clayton Smith, like he's not he's just a really good, solid player. And think of how differently you think of this ASU team going into the season with. You have one returning starter on your defensive line in CJ Fight, as opposed to you have half of your returning starters on your defensive line coming back in Fight and now Clayton Smith. Like that's pretty good, and like you weren't getting anyone in the transfer portal as good as Clayton Smith on the defensive end, and so you got the guy from Michigan State. I'm kind of forgetting some of the guys at the ASU, but I know the guy from Michigan. Oh, and the guy from Baylor, Winston. So you got those two guys plus Clayton Smith plus some of the younger guys. Now with an area that's like, is that okay? It's like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, you brought back Clayton Smith, and sure, he's had 4 sacks each of the last 2 seasons. That's not outstanding, right? But it's also not. I'm sorry, 4.5, and then 4 in each of the last 3 seasons. And so, yeah, that's not like outstanding, but it's also decently productive, and he's a good run defender as well. And so, like, you need those guys on the team to have a good defense. And so, he's apparently going to be involved in some offensive plays as well, which I think that's kind of interesting. But I hope that he just continues to play on the defensive line. Like, this is just a very good player, and like. Yeah, he may not like have 10 sacks every year, but that's still a really good player to have on your team. And I'm just so glad that it kind of fell through like the cracks, that he was able to come back. Like this is just to wrap it up. Like you were not getting someone out of the portal equivalent to Clayton Smith, and maybe the guy from Michigan State whose name I'm forgetting, or Winston from Baylor. Like yeah, maybe they end up being better than him this next year, but that doesn't mean that it's a nothing burger that he's coming back. I think this is, I don't want to say it's like a big deal, but like it definitely, it makes your defense, I'd say, noticeably better, and that's good. So happy about that, and just wanted to note that before spring football really kicks off. There was a press conference that Dillingham had about that, and apparently there's going to be some new new announcement made about something coming. That was all something big coming with the program, so that's good. But I'll kind of focus more on spring football when the time comes. There's just more pressing things to talk about in the basketball sphere. So, all right, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Please rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. 160 episodes. It's kind of taken a while to get there. Honestly, I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh, it's flown by." It's like, no, I don't think it's flown by. I think it's kind of gone at a normal pace. But yeah, happy to get to this point. And I don't know. I just kind of like venting about ASU sports to the 30 people that normally listen. Thank you for doing so. Please like and subscribe, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. And as always, go Sun Devils.